every Friday night I would sit down with my husband over a glass of wine and why is there no book that I can send these kids to? Why is there no podcast? Like, why is there no course that would just help make these kids where they need to go and give them the resources they need?
You're tuning in to Forging the Future, and today I'm in the studio with an extraordinary founder in Houston with an inspiring story and mission that's eliminating the education to employment skills gap. I'd like to welcome Allie Danziger to the show. Welcome, Allie.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now, and we'll get into that. So, where are you from exactly, and where did you go to college?
I'm from Houston, and I went to the University of Texas.
All right. So, like me, you got your start with internships. All right. So, tell me a little bit about that as you were in college and.
Yeah, for sure. So I had to work through college, and I early on realized the importance of getting experience. And so rather than working at like the smoothie bar or Chick-fil-A or whatever, I really wanted to build up my experience. I had eye on the prize. I wanted to move to New York after graduation and work for a PR agency. And so every single semester, starting my second semester of freshman year, I interned in different fields of public relations just to get as much experience as I could. So my first one was for a startup called Pick a Prof, where I did public relations, literally faxing out press releases to
faxing. What is that?
Yep. And then for a hedge fund, then for different agencies, nonprofits, and really got the opportunity to explore all the different facets of the industry that I was going into, so that by the time I graduated, I had a much more clear idea of exactly what I wanted to do. And it tested out some things that I now knew I didn't want to do.
So at the U of H, when I was there, they had something called the co-op program, cooperative education, right? And so they actually facilitated finding these internships. Is that the same way that it worked at UT?
There were programs for that. I feel super fortunate that I was able to use my own network to build those relationships and find those internship opportunities. And that's a lot of what I teach young professionals today, is how important building your own social capital is as early as humanly possible, because that's where many jobs are found.
So you found those internships yourself, and that first one you found yourself as well?
I did.
So tell me a little bit about the process of how you got that job.
Yeah, I mean, it was someone like a advisor in my sorority who was the CMO of that startup, and I just networked with her, connected with her. I probably asked her to go to coffee just because I knew she was a CMO. I was in the marketing and wanted to learn more, and then said, hey, I'll come and help and learn and do whatever I can, and have always really had that, just let me jump in, figure things out. And I really remember like late nights and really seeing that entrepreneurial startup environment and thinking it was so fun and something that I wanted to be a part of.
So then you went on to found an agency, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my first job out of college was with a PR agency in New York. Got the dream.
So you achieved that dream.
I achieved that. It was with a luxury real estate PR agency in Manhattan. And so that was in 2007. And if you follow real estate market trends, that was not necessarily the best time to be starting at a real estate focused PR agency. 6 months into working there, they went from 40 people to 20 people and laid off half the staff. I immediately I did not get laid off, but started looking around at other jobs and noticed that at most other agencies in New York were starting to dabble in social media. Thought that was really interesting. And so I went to my boss and said, in the next round of layoffs, feel free to lay me off because I'm more interested in this path and I'm going to start interviewing. And I just wanted to be upfront about that against other people's advice to do that. And the owner of that company ended up offering me just an amazing opportunity to start that company's social media department. So I had I didn't get a raise, but I got the budget to go to any conference, read any book, take anyone to coffee who I could just learn the world of social media from, and ended up growing that department to regain a lot of the company's losses. And at 23 years old, was running a P&L, running my own new business meetings, traveling the country, speaking about social media, and just thriving in that environment. And so quickly caught the entrepreneurial bug from that experience. I was doing a lot of freelance work on the side, like way before gig economy or like any of that was a normal thing. And I used up all of my sick and vacation days for my freelance work and did the math that I think a lot of early entrepreneurs do of like, well, if I did freelance full time, I could make more money, have more time. And so that's how I started in 2009.
That's very similar to me co-oping at IBM, making a co-op like salary, $12 an hour back then, which was, maybe 3-4 times the minimum wage, which wasn't bad, but I mean, it was no benefits and looking like, well, I mean, how much business do I actually need to do in order to make more money and maybe work from home even, right? And so it sounds like you did similar math.
Yeah.
And then decided to take the red pill and go off on your own.
Yeah, exactly. I gave myself a month in New York to see like, I was so young. I was 24. Am I the type of person who's going to wake up when I don't have a boss? And am I going to hustle? Or am I only doing this because it's a side thing? And quickly realized, no. I wake up early. I get things done way more when it's, just on me. So after that 1 month, I moved back to Houston. Where I'm from, because it's easy, it was still risky to do that. And with New York rents, I just couldn't risk that. And so that's when I opened up shop and said, all right, here we go. Let's see. It was kind of like at first, I'm just going to do this till I figure out what I'm going to do. And then 3 years later, looked around, had an office, had 10 employees, had so many clients. I was like, I guess this is what we're doing now.
It's interesting because we both had very similar trajectories that way. I mean, I started a business because I wanted to learn more about it and also make that transition and maybe make a little bit more money and be home, and thought, well, I don't really know exactly what kind of business I want yet, but here's like one opportunity where I think I can make some money. And then, 10 years go by.
Right.
So if I was looking back, I would say if I was going to give myself some advice back then, it would have been maybe betting a little bigger or maybe trying to figure out that idea, because you do get, not stuck, but you're like along a certain path and all of a sudden you have employees and you have a business. And in my case, I grew it to like the largest graphics toolkit company at the time, which turned out to be about $1.5 million a year. So it wasn't really like big enough really to go where I wanted to go. And so I would have maybe made a different decision at that point rather than saying, this is a practice round.
Right.
It sounds like yours was a little similar there.
For sure. When you're in a service-based business, and I didn't know that, I didn't go to business school. Like I didn't know what I was doing, when I was really starting, but you get more clients, you hire more people, you get a bigger office, you have more overhead. So then you have to get more clients, then you have to get more people. And it's just this like cyclical, never ending, exactly to your point, you look around, you're like, wait a second, how do I have 30 employees? And like, this is my monthly expenses. And it can really quickly add up where you feel, that like you just grew a business and didn't even realize what you were doing. It took me a long time to like put a business plan together and take the time to really think about my growth strategies and my own professional development, because we were just so busy getting business, which was great and it was fun. But lots of lessons learned from just starting that so young and not really ever working for anyone else ever, and not really seeing the way that other things can be done, and not knowing enough about the business world when I was doing that. Same thing. Sometimes I think back of like, wow, I could have made that so much bigger had I really realized the way that the world works and the way that other companies have grown and different things that we were maybe wasting time on.
Well, I was 24 also in my first business, and there wasn't really much around Houston back then. Of course, I was much earlier than you were. We're talking 35 years ago, but was there much there? Where were you learning how to be a business person at that point?
Yeah, there was. It was like budding technology stuff happening. There was HTC, there was Caroline Collective, there was Coffee Grounds was the coffee shop where that all the tech people were hanging out at, and all this like social media breakfast club was starting then. So it was starting for sure. It was all very early days back then. But conversations happening about how at that point, and much more now, of like how Houston has opportunities in the tech space and the innovation space. And so it was fun to be a part of that for sure. When I was in New York and really like early starting off, I was going to coffee with people who then like came out and wrote massive books and are really well known as major social media influencers and who created the industry. So it was fun to be a part of all that.
Did you have the same experience where someone would, I remember vendors coming to my office and then getting ushered into the CEO office, right? And then actually bursting out laughing, like, you're the CEO, right? You know, it's like, because I looked like I was 16 actually, and I was 24, right? You know, did you have any of that?
I mean, definitely lied about my age so much to the point where like sometimes I forgot how old I was. Not that I talked about it a lot, but yeah, I mean, I'm 5 feet tall. I look young and looked younger, much younger then. Small woman, like, lots of people didn't take me seriously, but I oftentimes tried to use that as much as I could to my benefit, because we were talking about social media, something that no one else was doing. And I was being compared against agencies who have been around for 30 years. And so I would come in and almost use that youth to my benefit wherever I could, because I couldn't get away from it, saying, look, yeah, you want to hire the younger people to be doing the social media for you and to be innovating what's happening in marketing and public relations. Other people are trying to figure it out, but we're using it on me and my team are using it on a day-to-day basis anyways, so we know it better. And that worked. But yes, there were certainly plenty of times where I was not taken seriously enough. And
I think that's an important point, to basically turn what looks like a disadvantage into an advantage. And not many people really take that perspective of like, well, how would I take this and turn it into something that's actually a pro and not a con, right? And then start with that. And I like how you did it. In my case, I always thought, well, maybe I need to put some white shoe polish in my hair, you know, and so the bankers would feel a little more comfortable about, you know, who I was, or trying to give me a line of credit or something, which, you know, it was always a challenge. But then what happened with that social media company?
Yeah, so continued to grow it, you know, about 600 clients over the years. And then in 2017, social media just continued to change. More digital marketing needs, you know, Facebook algorithms constantly changing, user behavior changing with Instagram Reels and TikTok coming out. And so I started looking around at other digital marketing agencies and realized that my clients needed more of those services. I was outsourcing so much to digital marketing groups that I needed to bring that in-house. So I thought about buying digital marketing agencies and started like just slowly meeting with a lot of them in town and out, you know, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, just to see like who could make sense to join forces with us. And in doing that, ended up meeting the gentleman who became my business partner who bought that company. He had the same business idea. He was looking around at other agencies of who to buy. He had already raised capital to do that, and had a digital marketing agency and a digital marketing background, didn't have agency background, and needed the PR and social media that we had. So it happened really fast. We met on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and sold the company January of 2018. Wow. So like it happened super, super fast, but it really was just this like match made in heaven where we needed exactly what the other person had. I love the sales, the recruiting, the external side of the house. He likes the more, you know, behind the scenes, running the shop and the operation side of things. And so it just worked really well in one of those situations where 1 + 1 quickly equaled 3.
So did you merge then, and you continued both to operate in the business, or you sold it to him and you were done?
I sold it, still retained ownership. We actually kept my company name because I had a larger footprint and a larger brand name. And then I stayed on board for 3.5 years running our sales and growth as the president.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also when people think about luck, right? And one of the things, every company needs luck. Mm-hmm. Right. But there are things you can do to improve the surface area and the chance of some good luck happening. And so in your case, it was like recognizing a need or a desire to partner with some other company. You didn't think that was going to happen exactly.
Right.
But because you started reaching out, then something lucky happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think you build your own luck, right? That company was not built to sell. And it was never even in my purview that happens with companies, let alone that I would do that with that company. I was planning on, doing that until I was old. My kids were going to run that company one day. And like, that was it. That was my life. And then you have to, yes, there's luck, but there's also just being open to opportunities. And when something happens in front of you saying like, whoa, ego, go aside, think about what this could mean, what this could look like, even if you don't really know what that looks like, and being open to the opportunities and experiences.
Mm-hmm. So at the time, I mean, it sounds like you went fairly quickly from I'm retiring and passing this on to my kids to like, oh, maybe I should sell that. Talk a little bit about how you processed that decision.
Yeah. I spoke to a lot of mentors, especially people who have agencies, because agencies don't get bought very often. And so the couple people who have sold agencies, especially in town, were amazing confidants throughout that experience, as well as just other people in the community who know me and know like what my business is capable of, giving me some of that advice and feedback of like, actually, you could do more. You can do different things. Like, even though you went to school for PR, you ran a PR agency for 10 years, there's actually more in the world that you might be capable of, or different, not more, but like different things that could be, possible for you in your life and your future. And so I think just having some of those really open and honest conversations and doing the soul searching of what do I want for the rest of my life was the thing that made me make some of those decisions. But it's having the network of people who will have the honest conversations with you and give you the honest feedback that you need, good or bad, give you the resources of books or podcasts or other people to listen to so that you can come up with those ideas on your own.
Yeah, that was a point I was going to make, actually, and you brought it up and summarized it perfectly, is that you went to your network and your mentors and the people that you could ask, hey, is this something I should consider? What do you think about this deal? I don't really know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but help me through this. Right? Yeah. And if you don't have that, then it's really tough.
Yeah.
Right?
And I had a mentor a while ago say, like, you need to build some of those habits and some of those relationships in times when you don't need them, so that when you need them, they're there for you. And so that's something that has been, I didn't do it in the early parts of starting that company at all. Again, like it was just growing fast and we were working crazy hours. It took about 6 years for me to take a step back and say, like, whoa, I just started a business. What is this? And, I joined EO and other organizations to help me with my own professional development and to build that connection and community so that I could know, oh, these are books that could help me when I need them, or these are podcasts or resources or people to know.
Constant learning.
That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you at some point then decided to leave that business and start another one.
Yep.
Right? Tell me a little bit about why that was.
Yeah. So in the marketing agency, our talent acquisition strategy was always hiring interns and entry-level employees. I really believed in internships myself. I started that company young and didn't really feel comfortable hiring people much older than me. And so that just became part of our culture, that we hired a lot of early career professionals. And I was always frustrated by that talent, always having, people didn't know things that I needed them to know as a fast-growing small business owner. They couldn't go into meetings without a ton of training. They couldn't talk to my early career managers. And so we built a lot of training within the walls of Integrate to just help onboard and prepare and mentor entry-level professionals. So when COVID hit, I'm kind of just like was known in the community because I hire from all the colleges, from all the marketing schools, from the community. I was getting tons of calls of, can you talk to my aunt's neighbor's cousin's friend? Can you talk to my class? Can you talk to this, alumni group? Because people are lost and they don't know what to do. So I was doing a lot of that, as just nights, weekends, networking, whatever. And finally decided to like scale that and do them all on Fridays because it was just getting really busy. Every Friday night I would sit down with my husband over a glass of wine and why is there no book that I can send these kids to? Why is there no podcast? Like, why is there no course that it would just help make these kids where they need to go and give them the resources they need? And so, like an entrepreneur, I'm like, well, maybe I'll create that and scale these conversations. And so I set it up in the fall of 2020. I had 10 young professionals that I would get on Zoom with for 4 hours a week and coach and mentor them through their internship experiences. And I connected them with business owner friends to be interns. And I would get feedback from the business owners on what they needed to know, where they were excelling, and where the gaps were. And then that kind of like created the curriculum. 7 out of 10 of those young professionals ended up getting paid job offers, and all 10 of the business owners said, hands down, this is the best intern I've ever had. And 3 of them said, I will invest in this for you to go figure out what this can and should be. And so that was really okay, I guess this is a business. There's something here. Tested out scaling that in the spring of 2021. So we took that 10-person cohort, created a 35-person cohort, just like, could this ever be a business, or was this just luck because of COVID and the timing and everything? It was just as successful. And then we raised another $1 million at the end of that cohort. So that was really the impetus to say, like, this is something I want to try and do something a little different. I've done service-based business. I wonder if I am capable of growing a product and using my skills towards something that I'm really passionate about. And so worked through a succession plan and decided to exit.
And so then this became Ampersand?
This is Ampersand, yes.
Okay. And so you're the sole founder then of Ampersand?
I have 2 co-founders,
okay.
And then we've grown and, over time with employees, got advisors and investors and all that. And so, yeah, it just continued to grow after that first amount of funding. And then when I was dedicated to it full time, we went from 35 people to 150 people in the summer of 2021. That's when we started to build software because we're like, okay, this is actually growing. This is something. We've got some money to actually do something here so that it can really scale. Then we went to 1,000, and now we've had 10,000 people go through the training.
Through the internship. Mm-hmm. And then how big was the company itself?
In terms of?
Like number of people like in the core business?
7 at our largest. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we kept things really lean. There wasn't really a need because we had the training would scale, and then, had other people, help marketing. We used outside resources as well as where we needed to.
Well, what does make a good internship program?
Well, it's partly the leadership and having the leadership actually like bought into the internship program itself. It's the right training so that the managers, the people who are facilitating the internship, have the understanding of what their own needs are, as well as what the expectations should be from the entry-level talent. And then it's the real training to the interns, because the interns just are lacking a lot of the soft power skills, durable skills that they need in order to be successful in the internship. So investing in that training, I think, is so important. And not enough companies, not enough managers invest in like those skills that no one is teaching. The colleges aren't teaching it. The managers aren't teaching it a lot of the times. And someone needs to teach incoming professionals how to be grown-ups, how to be professional.
Who is responsible for that talent development?
Well, that's the question, right? And unfortunately, like no one takes responsibility for it. The colleges are so focused on getting students to graduate, and the professors are focused on the individual skills that they're teaching. The career services is helping them get jobs, but not necessarily preparing them in the way that the workforce wants them to be prepared. And then the workforce, like they're not taking responsibility for it because they're saying, hey, the schools need to be teaching students how to be professionals. I don't care if they know, deep Excel or if they know how to write a press release. Going to my marketing experience, I just need them to know how to come into the workforce and be professional. So there's this misalignment, and Ampersand has been filling that gap with our training. We teach things like how to send a calendar invite, what to talk to your manager about on the first day of work, what to take notes on in a meeting, when to raise your hand in a meeting and when to not, what your Zoom background should look like, and and also the why. So like, why do you need to show up to work in certain ways? Why is the conversation from the conference room to the front door of the office like actually the most important part of the meeting? And how do you insert yourself into those conversations? But again, like the why is your manager micromanaging you in this situation? How did you show up to give them that impression that that's the relationship that they need to have? Their job is your job is to make them look good for the rest of your life. And so just some of those nuances that a lot of people just never spell out. And historically, well, no one's ever spelled them out, and it's always been hard for people to figure it out. But when we were all in person together, that you could just learn a lot of it by osmosis. You're sitting in your cube, you see things happening on the other side of the hall, and you just see when the same thing happens 10 times that's the norm. When it's over Zoom or when it's in a hybrid environment, no one is like talking about this stuff on Teams or on Slack, like why these things are happening. And so young professionals don't learn it. Managers get frustrated that they don't understand it, but no one's actually explaining it and laying it out.
Interesting. And actually you're giving me a lot of thoughts. When I was in the intern program, and my feeling was always that, well, you hire an intern and then just treat them like a regular employee, right? Mm-hmm. Give them real tasks, ask them to do real things. That's what they were asking me to do at mm-hmm. IBM. But then when I look at the number of co-ops that were with me at the time, many of them just didn't actually respond to that. I did intuitively somehow. Mm-hmm. The rest of them, would often become copy jockeys, and it's like, go make some copies. I don't know what to do with you because you don't actually understand how to do the job.
Right.
And then I would say that there's some correlation. I think what you're doing there also is needed for even like say like family life. You know, there's a lot of things that you don't get trained on, like how to run a household and how to balance a checkbook and how to open a bank account and how to take care of yourself and all those things that you don't get trained on. But it's very similar, right?
Yeah.
So an expectation, my expectation has always been like, hey, they should know this because it seems like common sense, right? What do you mean how to send a calendar invite? It's like, really? I mean, someone needs to be trained how to do that. But
how many times have you gotten a really terrible calendar invite?
All the time.
Right.
There's all the time. So, I mean, I'm saying that I agree with you. There's a real need. But, you know, you can see now, like, well, this is why it's happening. And this is why managers are frustrated because they're coming out of school and they're never having to do these business type things.
Yeah. And internships are lower today than they've ever been. And so less students are graduating with internships. So they don't come into the workforce with as much experience as they did before either.
Interesting. Yeah. So there weren't the internships and now they're coming in cold as like an employee.
Right.
And having some real challenges on how to do their job. Right. That is very interesting. So why are there less internships now?
Yeah, I don't have the answer or the crystal ball as to why, but I can tell you that the incoming generation or Gen Zs, they are much more entrepreneurial. They see YouTube stars and TikTok stars and all that like becoming millionaires and billionaires. And so they are more so trying to emulate a lot of that behavior, just entrepreneurialism in general. When I was starting my company, like Mark Zuckerberg was the only young entrepreneur that I could look at and say, oh, here's someone doing something. Now they can look around and there's so many entrepreneurs. And so I think that there's just this different entrepreneurial spirit, which is beautiful and amazing. And there's so much that we can leverage from there. But because of that, going to go make copies for a company just isn't as enticing because they don't necessarily want that job that will lead to anymore like they once did. They want more autonomy in their careers and they want to know the impact that they're making. And so it's a little bit about the framing from the businesses of what they have the potential to do in those internships and then what they have the potential to do in their careers and in their jobs.
Interesting. So it's a combination of, say, maybe more immediate gratification in their jobs and not wanting to really do a little bit more menial work while they learn on the job in a traditional internship. Are companies offering less intern positions?
So yes, right now, like in 2023, absolutely, there's less opportunities. In 2022-ish, I think there were more, but internships always follow recessions or like scared behavior of uncertain economic times. To go back to what you just said, though, I don't think that it's less that they're not willing to. I think it's they don't understand the impact that these menial jobs have on the larger company goals. And when you break it down for them, you've had some great interns, I know, at SoftTech. When you break the tasks down for them and explain why the picture that they are taking for social media, what impact that has to growing this podcast, and then what growing the podcast has to growing the company, to growing the fund, to helping invest in more startups, and just lay all of that out for them, then they can understand like, oh yeah, I am going to show up and I'm going to take a really good picture because I now understand why that matters to not just like my own career development, but also to the entire company. And we don't take that like 5 seconds to just explain it again in a hybrid environment. It's harder to like take that moment to explain what they're doing or for them to pick up on why what they're doing actually matters. But I think that is the real big key that needs to happen so that they do see the impact of the menial work that needs to be done. And I think that'll make them do more of those types of tasks.
I think the generation, like you said, it's not like in my generation where it was the job is enough. I have a job, I'm providing for my family, I'm bringing home a paycheck. Now it's like, well, I have the job, but I want to make an impact.
Absolutely.
Right? I want to provide value.
And there's some amazing articles out there of like each different generation and how when they graduated college or when they entered the workforce, what was happening in the economy and how that impacts the entire generation and how they show up for work. So I'm a millennial. I graduated in an uncertain time. As I mentioned, my first job, there were layoffs within the first 6 months. And so because of that, I have always been like a workhorse. Like I can work my way out of anything because I did in my very first job, right? Like I didn't get a promotion. I didn't get a raise. I just stayed at the office till midnight and I built out a social media department and I grinded and it happened. And a lot of millennials have that mindset. We're of the mindset at like Facebook and every big tech company, put in a ping pong table, beer pong, and and then we'll stay at the office because you're doing my dry cleaning for me. There's babysitting here. Like, yes, we will stay here forever. Just keep us employed and keep us fed and enough beer in the fridge. Then Gen Z comes in and they're like, no, I don't want to be in the office, because when they were young, their parents were getting laid off. They throughout their childhood, it was like 9/11. It was a recession. It was everything with COVID and Black Lives Matter and that all the movement of everything is their reality. And so they're like, no, I'm not going to do what my parents did and not come to my kids' baseball games or whatever it is. There's more to life than what I saw my parents go through. So that's part of why I think that they have that like impact mentality as compared to millennials or other generations.
So you're right. Everyone wants to have an impact, especially the younger generation. And you've been having a lot of impact yourself on internship, and to the point to where you've been recently acquired. So Ampersand has now been acquired by Ascent, right? And so tell me a little bit about that new role and what's next.
Yeah, for sure. So Ascent Funding, they are one of the only lenders that provides coaching and training to every borrower. And so when I met the CEO of that company, I just was enthralled by that mission-aligned finance company, and that they would have so much care of the people that they're lending money to ensure that they actually get jobs and improve their economic livelihood. So we had lots of conversations. They have an entire, it's called the Success Team and Success Department. And Ampersand and everything that we've built, all of our training really helps to enhance what they provide and scale it so that they can give that to their hundreds of thousands of borrowers, as well as millions in the future, hopefully. And so, yeah, just a month ago, they acquired Ampersand. My team and I came over, and I'm now leading that entire department as we're working through like all the integration and everything now. But that's the vision, that we're already delivering these services, but really be able to increase the livelihood and the economic outcomes of many millions of people.
Well, congratulations for that. And I know you're one of Curate Capital's portfolio companies, which Softic's also an investor in.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely. How did that come about exactly? I mean, was it again where you were looking for additional funding and this just happened to, just be a happy accident, or?
Yeah. So I was raising my next round. As I was doing that, I was talking to a lot of the VC community, and they were connecting me with other founders and other companies that were doing similar things or trying to do similar things. And so a couple of conversations came up where it was do we just join forces? And again, yes, I had to do the soul. This company was a little different because this company was always built to sell. I raised outside capital, so I always knew that this was going to be the outcome. But so had to do a little bit of the soul searching as I talked to these companies of, is now the right time? Is this the right company? Is this the right leader? Is this the right home for this baby that I've built, right? And so talked to probably 25 companies, narrowed it down to about 4 in the end, across multiple different industries to find that right home. Because it was kind of like we needed to build a leader. We were raising money to build a leadership team, to build a tech team, to build just additional resources that we needed to fulfill the vision further. And if another company can do that with us and already has those resources, has the teams that we would go hire or poach from them, then why not just join forces and be able to do it together, especially if the missions are aligned and we're all trying to do the same thing. So it just was the right fit because of those things. And, again, like this time I was able to be a little bit more smart about how to find the right company, how to find the right resources and team, and make sure that it was a good fit. Not that it wasn't before, but
And then how was your experience with raising that outside capital and having Curate as a partner in that process?
Yeah. So we had Curate and then a bunch of friends and family. Lots of lessons learned from that. Curate and Carrie are just amazing. So I had known her from the agency, and we were friends. And so she's been an amazing resource for me and for my team. So grateful for her. All the other investors were more friendly. I'd send out investor notes, and most of the emails back would be like, Allie, we're so proud of you, which is great. And it's helpful, I think, to have people on your cap table who can like actually support you, actually introduce you to other investors or potential customers, potential employees. And so that it was, I'm so grateful that I was able to raise that capital. And I know that that's a privilege and not a lot of people have that network and that social capital to be able to so easily raise as much as I was able to raise. And it's really hard to raise money from friends and family. To have 29 people on my cap table and to have to get signatures from every single person in this deal was a challenge.
That is a lot.
And so next time around, I will be much more just careful about who to take money from, like experienced investors, ones that I can easily contact when I need to, and ones that can be really helpful in the times that you need them. And so that's usually, or lately, my advice to founders is clean up. There's a reason people say don't raise from friends and family and have a clean cap table, and now I know why. But I think you have to live through that experience to really understand.
Lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for sending out updates, because that's a pet peeve and something that a lot of startup founders, for some reason, don't do often enough. Until they're actually in trouble and it's too late.
Yeah.
So I wore my shuttle socks today in honor of being an intern down at IBM and NASA back in the day, and I have a little gift for you. I like to give everyone some crazy socks. So
I love it. Thank you.
Shaping the future brains and of America. Some pink brains.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. This was great. Really appreciate it.